Everyone talks about a fear of public speaking, but the truth is that it's not exactly fear of public speaking. It's fear of public judgment, fear of public scrutiny. You're not good enough. You're unworthy. That's the fear of the judgment that we have. I think the best advice that I can give to have a little bit of a mindset shift, because the listeners want you to succeed, because if you succeed, they have the best experience possible.
How you build the confidence in you? What makes some people more confident than others? And how can someone who feels less confident become more confident?
There are so many things that change our confidence levels from day to day or from audience to audience. So, my 4-word secret to confident public speaking is this.
Welcome to the Billion Insight podcast. I'm your host, Shree. Today we have a very special guest whose name is Dr. Laura Sicola, a leadership communication coach for more than 20 years, and a speaker, author, and educator who spent her career helping leaders speak with clarity, confidence, and real influence. She has worked with leaders at all levels, including executives from Fortune 500 companies. You might have seen her TEDx talk, which has around 7 million views. Or you might have heard her on her podcast, which is Speaking to Influence. In this episode, we will explore why your voice is the key to your next big opportunity and how the way you speak shape others' perception of you. We shall delve into traits that contribute to effective communication, whether you are a complete beginner or an aspiring professional. We hope this discussion will provide valuable insights and strategy for enhancing your soft skill to make greater impact in your communication. So without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Laura Sicola to the show. So welcome, ma'am. Welcome to the Billion Insight podcast. How are you?
I'm very well, Sree. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm honored to be here with you and your listeners today.
Thank you, ma'am. It's our pleasure to have you on our show.
Thank you.
So, ma'am, to start up our podcast, we usually delve into our guest's childhood. So, if you don't mind, can we start from the beginning? Let's rewind to the beginning.
Okay. What would you like to know specifically?
You grew up in the US, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm from the United States, outside of New York City, pretty close to New York.
Okay. So, in which era did you grow up?
Oh, gosh, I was a child of the 1980s. So if you like rock and roll and the punk music look and style, that was very much part of my school years. It was a fun time for music and for exploration.
Yeah. The Michael Jackson era, the Queen era.
Oh, yes.
Freddie Mercury.
Yep. Very popular.
Yep. So, ma'am, what was America for you during your formative years?
Well, music was definitely a part of it. And of course, school was important for everyone. There was more and more focus on international interests and things that were happening, in Germany. The wall came down between East and West, of course, and in the USSR collapsed. And of course, so these are big issues that were very top of people's minds at the time. And it is something that definitely created an interest for me in international relations and in having more of a global mindset and understanding the political geography in the world. And so that started a lot of my focus and my university study as well.
So the political interest, the geopolitics kind of spark your interest towards international relationship. So
Yes.
What sparked your interest in the leadership communication, the things which you are currently doing?
That was more of an evolution. My real interest early was in foreign languages. I was always amazed at people who could speak many languages. And, I think one of my earliest memories was that I have one grandmother who is from Chile in South America. And she would come to visit us over Christmas or other holidays. And I would hear her on the telephone talking to her family, to her siblings in Santiago, down in Chile, but speaking in Spanish. And I was not raised speaking Spanish. So to me, when I was 5 years old, 6 years old, it was like a superpower that she had, this magic language that she could say these sounds and someone else understood them and could make more of those sounds back. And I think maybe the first goal I ever set for myself as a child was that someday I wanted to learn grandma's secret power. And which, of course, was just Spanish. But to my childhood brain, it was a superpower. And so that began my interest in the international communication and cultures and languages. And so I studied Spanish. And then in college, in the university, I studied Japanese. And I lived abroad in Japan for about 3 years afterward. So understanding where the language and culture were always intertwined for me. And then I became a teacher. And when I was teaching, I started teaching elementary school with in a bilingual English and Spanish program. So it was content and curriculum, but also multiple languages. In Japan, I taught for a while Japanese and English, and then eventually came to the university as a professor and did my PhD. That's why I came to Philadelphia originally many years ago. And that allowed me to teach older students and work with business people and start to understand what their challenges were in communication, whether they were native speakers of English or not native English speakers. And as I understood their challenges in communication, it taught me about the nature of leadership because they were the leaders that I was working with. And that's where it came. That's where it began. It was never the idea of, gee, I think I'll go into leadership. I never had that idea. It kind of found me instead.
Hmm. That's very interesting, ma'am. So, how many languages you personally speak? You said Spanish and Japanese and English.
I've studied many languages, but I can't use them well. Spanish is my second language. Japanese was my third. Italian is my fourth. And I've played with many others, just bits and pieces. But those are the ones that I would consider myself. I can use them decently well.
So, ma'am, how does a typical day look for you?
Every day is different, which is what I like best. I like a lot of variety, but there are mornings that I have meetings with my team, and we will discuss everything from marketing and sales to operations. I do a lot of coaching one-on-one with my clients. When we're done with this interview today, I have 2 meetings with some executives that I'm working with, and I'll be meeting with them one-on-one for about an hour or so a piece. I'll have meetings with some prospects who maybe are interested in having me come and do a training for their team, or perhaps inviting me to speak at an event. So we will be discussing the engagement, discussing the opportunities, and see if it's a good fit, if it's something that we can do together. Sometimes I'm just working with my team on developing new material, putting together PowerPoint decks for trainings I'm running, or writing some newsletters. Every day is different.
Hmm. So, ma'am, speaking about the training, I have some rudimentary question about the beginner who aspiring to be a leader. So, let's talk about things like nervousness, anxiety,
Mhm.
stage fright during public
Mhm.
speaking. So what are some common causes of nervousness in public speaking?
What's interesting, Shree, is that everyone talks about a fear of public speaking, but the truth is that it's not exactly fear of public speaking. It's fear of public judgment, fear of public scrutiny, that people will evaluate you and say, you're not good enough. You're unworthy. That's the fear of the judgment that we have. So, but I think the best advice that I can give is to have a little bit of a mindset shift, because let me speak directly to your listeners today. To the listeners, when you're tuning into Shree's podcast, what are you thinking about? Why are you tuning in? You tune in because you say, oh, he usually gives really good insights. He speaks to interesting, useful people, and I learn something. I want to get value. I hope that if I tune in, I learn something interesting and useful, right? This is what all audiences are thinking, no matter what the context. Audiences are thinking, I hope I get something useful. I hope I get something valuable. I hope this is a good experience. You're not thinking, who is this Dr. Laura Sicola? Is she stupid? Is she useful? Is she not, like, why is she going to be a waste of my time? Did Sri make a mistake in inviting her? No, of course you're not thinking about that. You're going, oh, I hope this is good. There's optimism involved. So now let's turn that around. When it's your turn to speak to present at your company or to speak in your community at some point, the people who are listening to you are also thinking the same thing. They're not going, who is this person standing up? Why am I listening to them? I bet they're not useful. Let me see how many mistakes they make. I'm going to take notes. No, of course not. They're going, oh, let me hear this person. I hope it's useful. The listeners want you to succeed, because if you succeed, they have the best experience possible. So my 4-word secret to confident public speaking is this: it's not about you. It's not about you. Stop worrying about, well, what if I make a mistake? What if they don't like it? What if I forget what I want to say? Your job is to think about your audience and approach generously and think, how can I give them the best value possible? If I were in the audience, who is the speaker that I would want to listen to? Be that speaker. That's how you can overcome the fear. Focus on the generosity instead, not the evaluation.
That's a very great answer, man. One question just popped in my mind is, I have seen many of your content, especially that TED Talk, which went viral. Over, 7 million people have watched that. So my question is, what you like, the thing which you mentioned, that you do not have to be think much about while you are appearing in the public domain. Your nervousness is stem from the fact that you are thinking so much that what will people think about you while you are presenting your presentation. So my question to you is, was you always like that, or is there any moment that changed your perspective towards this? How you build the confidence in you?
I think it's important to realize that I'm not suggesting you should never feel nervous. It's okay to be nervous, but because your body doesn't know the difference between the adrenaline when your heart starts going faster and you can feel your blood pumping
Yeah.
through your body more.
Yep.
You feel maybe some butterflies in your stomach, like
Yep.
your
Yep.
stomach
Yep.
turning over a little bit. But your body doesn't know the difference between that adrenaline that comes from being nervous or the adrenaline that comes from being excited. So you don't want to feel nothing. If you feel nothing when you're getting up there, you need a different job. It means you've lost your passion and you have no purpose for going. So a little bit of energy, a little bit of nerves or of adrenaline is good. You just want to channel it into a healthy space and remind yourself, okay, I'm here. This is a great opportunity. I really want to do well. I can't wait to give people these new insights. I hope they walk away with it and think, "Oh, I'm so glad I listened to that." It's that shift, but it doesn't say, "Oh, I don't feel anything." So, but I have to be careful not to start to feel that energy, and then I don't want to say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. I'm so nervous. Oh my gosh, what if I make a mistake? What if?" As soon as you do that, you go downhill, and then it just makes more adrenaline, and it makes your negative energy even more overwhelming, and that's when people fall apart. So we want to avoid that. So using the good language for yourself helps to make it positive energy. I think I've always been relatively confident as a public speaker. In school when I was, 10 or 12 years old, we had to do little presentations for class, and I always enjoyed those. I don't think I ever got crazy nervous over it. But of course, there's always the energy, there's always the excitement, there's always the butterflies, because you were going to be evaluated. It was for school. I was going to get a grade. So I wanted to do well, but it wasn't a debilitating kind of nerves.
Yep. 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 So, ma'am, you mentioned a word that is confidence.
Mm.
So my question is, we often see that some people, inherently possess more confidence than others. Not just I'm saying that in a public speaking domain, but in various aspect of their lives. So my question is, what makes some people more confident than others? And how can someone who feels less confident become more confident?
There are so many things that change our confidence levels from day to day or from audience to audience. If you hand me a microphone and tell me to talk, I can talk in front of just about anyone. That doesn't scare me. But please don't ask me to sing or to dance in front of people that I don't know. That's not a place where I am confident, especially the dancing part. Who is the audience? What is at stake? Who do you know? all of those kinds of, or even your definition of failure is a very important. So there are some cultures that are very deeply rooted in historical constructs of shame. And the idea that if you make a mistake in public, no one will ever forget it and you'll never live it down and you'll embarrass your family and not just yourself. And that's a lot of pressure. We use words like make a mistake or it was okay, but it wasn't my best performance. Or do you say I failed? So,
Mhm.
depending on the kinds of words that we use to describe our performance or to describe the what's at stake, to describe the risk, that changes your confidence level. Because if you're afraid that any mistake, and if it's not perfect, you'll be punished, well, that would make me scared too. But if it's
Hmm.
not about punishment or it's not about a long history of legacy where if I make the mistake now, no one will ever let me forget that I made that mistake. That's a terrible place to be. So I think there are many of those. Some people have been conditioned, whether it's because of their family dynamic or the kinds of job that they had or the kind of group of children that they grew up with. If
Mhm.
you would get punished or you would get, whether physically or verbally or socially punished for certain things, if that was a very real threat, that punishment for not doing things perfectly was going to happen, that would condition someone to be very risk averse and say, I can't afford the risk. Even if maybe I could do it well, there's too high of a chance that I would make a mistake and it's not worth the consequences of that mistake. But if you have been taught, no, go ahead, try, make a mistake. If you make a mistake, try again until you get it right. Then you learn to be more confident because there's less risk involved with a loss. You just do it until you get it right. I mean, some people are naturally more willing to take risks. Some people are shy. They just
Yeah.
don't like anybody to look at them. They don't want to be the center of attention, whether they do well or do poorly. So, you have to ask yourself, I'm not a psychologist, right? I'm a linguist, which is different. I'm a teacher, but psychology is, I'll leave the assessment or the analysis to the professionals on that one.
Yeah, but that is a very great point. You mentioned that it goes back to their childhood. The thing
Yeah.
which they experienced during their formative years could shape their confidence.
Yes.
So, ma'am, is there any hacks that you can use in day-to-day life to enhance your confidence? I mean, while you're speaking, you will look like a confident person. Is there any hack you like to share?
Oh, there are many. And of course, one is that confidence, yes, you can feel it inside, but it is also something that others who are listening and watching will interpret for you. And what I mean by that is maybe you are confident, but there's something that you're doing in the way that you're speaking that's making me say, is he really confident? I don't know. He seems maybe not so confident. Or at the same time, maybe inside you're a mess. Inside the butterflies are going crazy and you're super nervous, but you've learned to behave and speak in a way that people can't tell that you're nervous. And that's okay, because if you're projecting confidence, people will respond as if you are confident. And then that makes you feel confident. So it is a self fulfilling cycle in a good way. So, a
Yeah.
few of the things that you can do to ensure that you are projecting confidence, or at least not making it obvious to everybody that you're really, really, really nervous. um, Number one is don't talk too fast. When we get nervous and everything starts speeding up, we start to talk faster. And we're afraid that, oh my gosh, we can't have silence. If there's silence, then they'll know something's wrong. And we try to give more information, or we try to talk around things and we repeat ourselves. And that just sounds terrified. It sounds like you are panicking. So that doesn't sound confident. So, and when you are nervous that way, when you feel your heart kicking in, it's normal for time to feel faster than it really is. So you have to actively try to talk at a rate that is uncommonly slow and, even for you, uncomfortably slow, because what you don't realize is that your perception is wrong. what feels very slow to you when your heart is racing actually sounds completely normal to everybody else. But if you talk at a rate that feels normal when your heart is racing, it sounds like you're absolutely crazy to everybody else. So slow down, keep control of your speed, and that will allow you to sound more in control, which sounds confident.
That's very interesting, man. So when you are kind of thinking intimidating, don't think about cheetah, be a sloth.
Right, right. Let the sloth inside you do the talking, not the cheetah. I think that's a great
Yeah.
analogy. I like it.
So, ma'am, you're a leadership communication coach. So,
Yes.
my question is, in your opinion, what defines a leader?
Oh, so many things. There are so many books written about it. And, the best that I can say, I'm going to redirect the question for a moment. There's a great definition that I heard many years ago about what makes a good teacher. And my favorite definition is that a true teacher is someone who is good at explaining things to people who aren't good at understanding, and someone who is good at understanding people who aren't good at explaining things. I
Mm-hmm.
know that takes a minute to
Yep, yep,
process
yep,
what that
yep,
means, but it's like, okay, I have to be able to explain something to you, and I know it's going to be hard for you to understand, but I'm going to make sure that I deliver it to you in a way that you can understand it.
yep,
And I need to understand you, and maybe you're very smart in this one area, but you're not very good at explaining things to people. And you're not good at explaining your feelings or your thoughts or your reasons for something, because not everyone is good at
yep.
speaking and explaining effectively. But somehow I'll ask you questions and I can get clarifications. And somehow I will make sure that I understand you and that you feel understood by me. So if we can go and if I can make sure that somehow you understand me and I understand you, then that's a good teacher. And
Yeah,
I think that's a good leader, because a leader needs to listen and understand the values, the priorities, the challenges, the needs, the perspectives of all of their constituent groups, of all of their stakeholders, whether it's employees or customers or people who live in your neighborhood or anyone else, investors. But in the end, the leader has to make the final decision, and the leader must have a clear vision and a reason for that vision. And they need to be able to make others understand the vision in a way that makes them excited and eager to participate, eager to help make that vision a reality. And that's where they find meaning in their power. That's where people come together. So I think that's what leadership really is.
yeah, that is very interesting, ma'am. It's like once Albert Einstein said that if you know a concept, if you can't explain to a 5-year-old, then that means you are not fully, understand that concept by yourself.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Very true. There's in one of the most counterintuitive pieces of advice that I can give is that when people are nervous in particular, they will often explain things with big words and a lot of data and try to make the other person think that you're very smart. Right? You use the big words, you use all the data points so that you feel smart in saying it. But the only thing the other person learns is that you're smart. They don't learn anything useful for themselves. So the truth is that the best way to make somebody else think that you are smart is to be able to explain your ideas to them in a way that is so simple
yeah,
that they instantly understand it and they go,
yep,
oh, okay, that makes sense. Thank you. So they feel smart, and that makes them believe that you are smart.
yep, yep, yep. That only possible if you know the concept very well, so that you can dumb it down and convey it to the other person who you are not familiar with that concept.
And
Yep,
it's
yep,
not even about dumbing it down. I mean, I know we use that phrase, but I prefer to use a different expression perhaps, because when nobody wants to have somebody else dumb it down for them, no
yep,
one
yep.
wants to feel dumb or to feel stupid just because they don't know. I'm terrible at numbers. So when my financial advisor and I have a meeting, I need him to talk to me like I'm a 10-year-old child. but not like I'm a child, but that I have that level because it's not far from the truth. And but I don't want him to treat me like I'm dumb. That's just not
Yep,
my
yep, yep.
strength. So similarly, your audience, I they don't have my level of expertise on our topic, which is why I'm here. But I don't think anyone is dumb. They just haven't had a chance to learn this stuff yet. So I'm happy to
Yep,
teach it. So I'm not dumbing it down, but I want to make it digestible, make it relatable, make it easy to absorb, remember, and hopefully apply.
yep, yep, yep. Lack of better word I used, dumb it down, but I now understand what that you said. I shouldn't have used that word.
Well, it's a natural expression, and it is
Yep.
something we have all used many times. But
Yeah, man.
to your earlier point, as a linguist, the part of what my job is to recognize where those small differences, like word choices in explanations, change the experience that people have. And so, for if people want to be more influential, just being mindful of things like, well, I could describe this process as dumbing it down or as simplifying,
Yeah.
and which one might make the audience more interested in listening and learning from me if I tell them I will simplify this for them to make it easy versus I'll dumb it down for them
Yep.
to make it easy. It changes the relationship with me because it changes their belief about how I'm judging them. And just one little word change, but it suddenly creates this wave ripple effect
Yep.
about
Yep.
and
Yep.
where our relationship goes and our assumptions about each other. So small
Yep.
differences make a big impact.
Yep,
So
yep,
we have to
yep.
be careful.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. I can totally, I mean, acknowledge that this is important. It may be a small word, but yeah. So, ma'am, so we are talking about the leader. So, according to you, can anyone become a leader?
Oh, sure. Sure. I mean, leader of what is a different question. I am a leader in my own small company. I'm a leader in my family. I am a leader on, I'm a thought leader in my community. People who are interested in learning about my expertise will invite me to be on podcasts or will tune into mine or will read my book or ask me to come and do trainings for their team. So I'm a leader in that way. I would not be a good leader meaning like a good CEO of a law firm or of a financial asset management or an IT company. Those are not my areas of strength. So you need to know in what context or in what capacity you can lead, because not everyone can be a leader in every context. So
Yeah,
know your strength, go in that direction, or otherwise contribute your expertise to someone else's leadership space. But yes, everyone has the ability to lead somewhere, somehow, sometime.
yeah, yeah, ma'am. Yeah, ma'am. Completely agree. Just like our mother, they also kind of a leader and they kind of lead our house.
Mhm.
They take care of the house and what's good and what's bad for that. Is in a way, she's a leader. So you are
Yes.
absolutely right. Yeah.
If your mother, do you have siblings?
Yes, he has. Actually, my mother is a working lady, but I'm saying that in general. But
Mhm.
no matter she's a working lady, but still she handle the house.
Sure.
Yeah,
And there are many places where maybe it's the mother or the grandmother who runs the house, and maybe the father goes to the office to earn the money.
yeah,
But I know that my grandmother was, she was the stay-at-home mom, and my grandfather was the one who worked, and my father had four brothers or three brothers. And but when my grandfather would come home after work, he would take his paycheck, hand it to my grandmother, and her job was to manage the money in the house. After he gave it to her, and then that was it. He didn't have it anymore. He didn't ask questions. She was the manager of the house. That was the space. So, everyone has their place where they need to
yep,
lead.
yep, yep. So often we are this mother, the CEO of family.
Yes, sure.
Yeah. So, ma'am, let's talk about your TEDx.
Okay.
So you talked about our message can fall flat if it lacks rhythm. So for audience who are not familiar with that episode of the TEDx, so
Mhm.
can you explain what the rhythm is in this context?
So rhythm and intonation and all of those vocal qualities, you mean?
Yeah, it's all about the body language. It doesn't matter that how I say if it not match with what I am willing to say.
Yes. So I think one of the things that is very confusing to people in general is there's this question we often ask: what's more important, what you say or how you say it? And the truth is that it's not one or the other. What's most important is that they match. Because when they don't match, then something seems very strange to the listener. And this is where doubt creeps in. So, for
Yeah.
example, at the beginning of our conversation today, you gave this lovely welcome to your audience and lovely welcome and introduction to me. And then it was my turn. And there's a difference between if I said, "Hey, thank you so much, Shree. I'm so glad to be here today. I really look forward to your audience," versus if I said, "Yeah, thanks, Shree. I'm really glad to be here and really looking forward to your audience, to speaking to your audience." Right? The words are the same, but boy, the delivery changes your interpretation, doesn't it?
Yep, man.
And so the words on paper seem happy, respectful, enthusiastic. And with the first delivery that had the energy and the vocal variation and the for anybody who's watching on the video as opposed to just listening in the audio formats of the podcast, there's you could see on my face I was smiling, maybe my eyebrows were up, there's a little bit of motion in my body that showed the energy that matches the positive energy of the words. But the second time around, it was, I was sort of looking around and not looking at you, and my shoulders are down, and I'm not having much energy in my voice. It's just very low and flat, and it sounds more like, okay, can we get this over with? I promised to be here, but I don't know why. So let's just get it done as quickly as possible. That's what my voice sounds like. That's what my delivery looks like. And so if my words say, "I'm glad to be here," but something about my delivery, the how I said it, makes you think, it doesn't sound like she's telling the truth. It doesn't sound like she really is happy to be here. Then your brain is confused. Well, is she happy to be here or isn't she happy to be here? And when you feel as a listener that question, well, is it yes or is it no? Your brain will always assume no. You will trust the energy of the voice and the body language more than you trust the words when they don't match. But when they match, like the first time around, then everything seems three-dimensional and everything makes sense. Yes, she said she's happy to be here. She sounds happy to be here. She looks happy to be here. I believe that she's happy to be here.
Yeah.
So it's very important that we have the delivery that matches the words.
Yep. Sometimes if there is no words, people can guess through the body language whether the
Oh,
person is
yes.
happy or not. Yeah.
Sure. You don't
Yeah.
need to speak to
Yeah.
communicate a lot of meaning. The question is simply, does the delivery match? I mean, if I were giving a lecture on physics, I couldn't give a lecture on physics, but let's pretend a friend of mine is a physics professor. He's sick. So he hands me his lecture script and says, "Laura, do me a favor. Just teach this lesson for me today. Just read the script." Okay, I can do it. All of the content will be accurate. Will my body language or voice change the meaning? No, because it's still principles of physics that don't change based on delivery. Your interpretation of me will change. You might hope that I'm reading somebody else's script and that I didn't take notes myself because maybe I don't sound that I'm confident in what I'm saying. So you go, did she write this? Is she sure that that's the truth? Or, oh, this is Professor Smith's, or Professor Patel's answer or his script, then, oh, okay, well, she's terrible, but at least I trust that the information is right because it came from him instead. So these are the questions that come in our minds when our delivery doesn't match. So we can add extra information like she's not confident in this just through my delivery. Or I'm sure you've had plenty of conversations maybe with your parents or your siblings or your significant other where someone says something and you just look at them. You don't have to say a word, but they can just tell by the look on your face that you want to say, "Are you kidding me? Forget it. You know I will never agree to that," or something along those lines. So you don't need words to convey meaning, but if you do use them, we want them to match the delivery.
Yep. Excellent, man. I actually really like the way you blend the humor while delivering the story.
Good. And humor is important. There's a time and a place, and it
Yeah.
has to be appropriate for the example, appropriate for the audience, appropriate for the context and the topic. But people, a good general leadership communication and life lesson is that if you can add just a little bit of humor when trying to explain something to someone, it
Yeah.
opens the mind and it opens the heart to wanting to hear more. And that's the thing. Most people are like, stop talking. All right, all right, all right. I got it. I got it. I got it. Enough. But if you can make them laugh a little bit, their brain goes, oh, I like that. Can I have some more? Can you share some more? Can you talk some more? And then they're much more open to what else you might want to share.
Yep, yep, yep. So, ma'am, speaking about the communication, in your recent appearance, I actually forget the name of the show. There is a gentleman and a lady. They are sitting in the couch. You are sitting in the other side of the room, where you guys are talking how the listening skill of now is kind of diminishing. There are lots of people out there who speak, but there are few people are left who can listen to what people are saying. So, ma'am, how can we improve the listening capability of the people?
So I think there's two sides to that question, which is how do we improve our own listening skills? Because most of us are terrible listeners. As you
Yeah,
mentioned, our attention span is incredibly short. So if we're not good at listening to other people, it's going to create conflict,
yeah,
right? Because two people are having a conversation, but really they're just talking at each other. And what they're really thinking is, you need to listen to me. No, you need to listen to me. No, you need to listen to me. And then nobody's listening to anybody. So, on the one hand, how do we train ourselves to be better listeners, more respectful, more open, truly interested listeners? And on the other, of course, is then what can we do to help the rest of the world who we want to hear our message, to help them to focus their attention more? How do we make them want to listen more? Because that's one of the biggest challenges of a podcast, right? No one has to listen. No one's paid to listen. No one's forced to
yeah,
listen. Within 30 seconds, if they go, nah, I don't think I'm interested in this one, click, they disappear. And you don't know when they'll come back. So
yeah.
it is it's 100% dependent on us as the speakers to captivate the audience's attention and maintain it. So to actively communicate, to speak to them in a way that helps sustain curiosity and keep them engaged in the conversation. That's always my goal, is on a podcast or any on a stage anywhere else, to do my best to continually engage an audience even if I can't see them.
Yep, man. When I started my journey as a podcaster, many people said
Mm,
that in the era of the real TikTok videos, you are
mm,
planning to release a full-fledged podcast 1 2 hour long. Have you lost your
mm.
mind?
Yes, sure. Very counterintuitive nowadays.
Yep. But it doesn't affect me. When I started, it not because I wanted to start. It is because I love to talk to people like you. Through this conversation, I learned so many things. So this learning I want to share with the people. That's my goal. Earlier, you asked the objective of my podcast. That was the objective in the very beginning, from the day one.
That's great. And I think there's if when it's and that's, you just did a great job of illustrating my point, which is that when you are truly engaged in your own conversation and when most of the world is only giving you 15 seconds at a time,
Yeah,
there's it's like eating lots of appetizers all day, just little bites, little bites, little bites. And you can fill your belly on lots of little bites, but it's not satisfying after a while. So sometimes you take a bite of an appetizer and you go, that's delicious. I want a whole plate just of that. I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
want
yeah,
just to have one bite of that. I don't care about the other things anymore. I want to sit down and just eat this. So it's great when you just want little bites of something to watch the TikTok reels, etc. But you then give them the option and say, you know what? I'll give you a teaser video. I'll give you a little trailer. I'll give you a snippet or two. But if you want more of that, come listen to the whole conversation. You get 2 hours. It's a whole bowl full of
yeah,
all
yeah,
of this great content just for you, listener. You can have it all to yourself. And
yep,
that's a
yep,
beautiful
yep.
gift.
Yep, man. That one bites will lead to them to eat the whole plate. Yeah, definitely. Just like we podcaster, we often clip it out, make a sort out of it, and
Mhm.
if it by chance goes viral, then they will ended up doing the whole podcast episode.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. We would love that.
yeah. While researching about you, I have, as I told you a couple of time earlier, that I have consumed lots of your content.
Thank you.
One of that which went viral, the TEDx video, but I have seen the very lots of good content of yours, but it is shame that it is not went to the surface. It is buried under I mean, those content are waiting for the light of the day.
Sure. There's lots of content that's available if you go to my website, on the media page. There's so many videos and audios and links to different programs, and on my social media there's tons, but there's so much noise in the world. There's so many people who are trying to push their TikTok videos in front of your face and their podcast episodes and their advertisements and everything else. So that is the challenge, is that it's hard to get your message out in front of a larger audience because it's hard to break through the noise.
Yep. People are asking me lots of your video which didn't cross 3-digit number. So what motivate you to keep producing more and more content, whereas you not to see the result directly in front of your eyes? But I often say that I'm not producing the content for today. It may be seen by the people in the future. So I would like to ask you the same question. What keeps you driving to make the content?
Well, I'm not driving to make the video shorts for their own purpose. It is through conversations like this, where these conversations are the most valuable to me, where we get to dig into lots of information. We hope we can share them with many, many people. But then once we have the recording, we know that not everyone can watch or listen to a 90-minute conversation.
Yep.
So but there are so many ways to then chop it up a little bit and take excerpts and
Yep.
give them in more of those bite-sized pieces to people. So maybe somebody can't get all 90 minutes,
Yeah.
but they can get 90 seconds. So I'll give this gift to that person and this gift to that person. And you hope, as there's no reason not to make lots of other little videos when we already have the big ones. So we might as well continue to repurpose it in many different ways, because people are going to be on different platforms. Some people are on YouTube, some people will be on Spotify, some people will be on Apple or TikTok. So
Yep.
you get a little bit and everywhere just from this one video, from this one main piece of content that we create, and use it elsewhere. So to me, it's about generosity, and it's about wanting to make a difference. And if only 2 people hear it, as long as it makes a difference to those 2 people, then it was worth it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, completely. That's a very interesting point. Coming to your book,
Yes.
yeah, which is Speaking to Influence. Also, you
Yes.
have the same name of your podcast, also named by it.
Yes.
So, could you tell the story how you started your podcast and the book, followed by the book, or the book came first, then the podcast?
The book came first. I
Okay.
think I was working on the book for a very long time. At maybe 7 or 8 years ago, I started just writing bits and pieces, and I realized I had, blogs that I'd written and presentations that I'd given and interviews that I'd done, and there was so much content that I thought, well, maybe there's a book in this. And also because I'm a speaker, I like to speak at conferences, but as a speaker, for if you want to be, at least here in the United States, I'm not sure what the rules are socially in India, but if you want to be on a main stage as a keynote speaker, you have to have a book. If you don't, they won't even invite you, because after the presentations are done, there's always the expo, the floor in the conference room where they have all the vendors who are selling all sorts of stuff. And there's always one bookseller, and they want to have all of the books of the different speakers at the conference, because if they attendees like what you did in your session and they want to learn more about you, they will run to buy the book. So it was really necessary for me to be able to get on those stages. I had to finish the book. So that was the driving motivation to get it done originally. And then the podcast came later.
Hmm. That's very interesting, man. Actually, I didn't knew that that kind of thing is exist. That to being a keynote speaker, the minimum one of the qualifications is you must to have a book under your belt.
I think for most people, that is,
Okay.
of course, there are other celebrities
Yeah.
who maybe don't have a book, but their name is so big,
Yeah.
that it doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
I
But
can understand. Yeah.
for the rest of us, it has become like a business card, like a
Okay.
calling card of some sort. You,
Mm.
you kind of need to have it, or they don't take you seriously as a speaker.
Yeah. It might be the case in India. I actually not sure, but it may be. Yeah.
Sure.
So, ma'am, we are on the final segment of our podcast, where will I ask you some quick question, and you have to answer as fast as you can.
Okay.
Yeah. We call this section Instant Insights.
Instant insights. Okay. I'll
Yeah.
do my best.
Yeah. So, ma'am, are you ready?
I'm as ready as I'll ever be.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Beach or mountains?
Beach.
City or countryside?
Ooh, that really depends. So, work, city. Vacation, country.
Blue or green?
Blue.
Early bird or night owl?
Oh, night owl.
Best way to start your day?
Coffee.
With
Exercise
coffee.
and then coffee.
Introvert or extrovert?
Extrovert.
Most recent hobby that you picked up?
Hobby that I picked up using Duolingo for new
Duolingo.
languages.
Interesting. One thing that makes you smile instantly?
My boys.
How old are they?
My oldest is 22 and my
Hmm.
youngest is 8.
What is your go-to stress relief method?
Go to stress relief method. Reading.
Travel back in time or forward in time?
Interesting. Forward.
If you could have any dinner guest, dead or alive, who would it be?
Dinner guest. Well, given the world events shift in the last week or so, I would love to speak with Pope Leo the 14th,
The new pop, right?
the new pope. Yes,
Yeah.
just as of last week.
Hmm. Best way to handle success?
Pay it forward. Help someone else.
Best way to handle failure?
Learn from it. Move forward. Don't beat yourself up over it forever.
Best gift you have ever received?
Best gift I've ever received. When I was 16 years old, I mentioned at the beginning of the show today my grandmother, who was from Chile. When I was 16, she took me with her and she took me to Chile to meet cousins. And it was my first experience in a different country, different language, different everything. And it opened my eyes and it completely set my trajectory for the rest of my life.
Hmm. What is the one skill you wish you would learn earlier in your career?
One skill I wish I learned in my career. I wish I was better at finance. I wish I had a mind for numbers the way some people just inherently understand them.
Favorite book beside your own?
Of course, besides my own. Favorite book. I really appreciated recently a book called Never Split the Difference about negotiating by Chris Voss. It's a very interesting book.
Could you say something about it?
Sure. Chris Voss, the author, he used to be the lead hostage negotiator for the FBI in the US. And so if the government discovered a kidnapping, then his job was to go in and try to negotiate getting the hostage back safely. So very high stakes, very high risk involved. And everything that they did was on the telephone with the person who took the hostage. And so how those people were very high intensity, very high stress, very dangerous. And the goal was you have to get them to basically give up. It's not like you say, well, I want to charge you $100. And you say, well, I only want to pay $50. And we say, oh, okay, let's split the difference. Let's make it 75. That you can't do that with a hostage. So how do you, it's like, well, okay, just don't kill him, but just hurt him really badly and then give him back to, like, you can't do that. So it's all about the communication skills and the negotiation tactics to really get into the heart and the mind of the person who you're talking to. And it helps you to be a better and more successful negotiator.
It sounds like my kind of book.
Yeah, it was very interesting. It's available on Audible also.
Favorite movie?
Favorite movie? It's from a long time ago, but maybe Dead Poet Society. That was from the late 1980s, maybe early 90s, but it was with
Robin
Robin
Williams,
Williams.
right? Yeah.
Yes, yes, he played a teacher at a
Yeah.
boys' high school, and it was a wonderful movie. Funny and sad and happy, all the emotions all mixed up.
Yeah. I've seen it when I was child. Actually, I don't recall.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was a very inspiring movie, especially for me as a teacher.
Yep. 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 What is the difference between talking and influencing?
Oh, anyone can talk. You don't even need someone to listen to talk, but to influence is about having an impact on someone. Does it change the way someone thinks, change what someone understands, change how someone feels? It doesn't have to be a big change, but even just a little bit that there's an impact from what you say. Talking, it can just be you and your voice going into space.
Yeah. So, ma'am, why do you say every conversation is a brand movement?
When people think about branding, first of all, most people only think about branding in terms of a company that has a brand. Apple is a brand, Nike shoes are a brand, but we don't tend to think about our own personal brand. And that's a mistake because your brand is your reputation. And many times in the workplace, in particular, or at home, people will think, okay, well, now there's something really important. I have to give a presentation, or I have to do this big project for my family, or something big. Okay, let me do my best. And then hopefully that will be my brand. Mm-mm. The truth is that your brand is what happens in the moments when you are not trying. Your brand is the reputation that you have of what who people know you to be. What's your normal way of being?
What's the
And
narrative?
not yes, what's your or you can try to look very generous when you're trying to impress someone. But
Mm.
normally, if you're selfish and stingy, on a daily basis with your friends or your colleagues or your family members, just because you made one big, generous gesture one day, that's not your brand. That's not your reputation. That's, oh, how nice. He finally did something generous. Your brand, your reputation is the stingy and selfish person. People wouldn't depend on you for generosity because they know you are your own top priority, not someone else's. So when you talk, the way that every encounter that you have, the way that you treat people, the way that you communicate, the way that you explain things to them, listen to them, respond to them, this establishes the reputation for who you are as a person. If you naturally are someone who truly listens when other people talk, are you are empathetic when they're explaining what they're dealing with, stress or challenges of some sort or excitement, and you acknowledge those feelings and validate those feelings instead of just ignoring them or trying to fix them somehow, you know, or when someone asks you for feedback and they need some correction because the job they did was okay, but not great. Are you clear but diplomatic with them? You know what? You did these things well, and these part over here, I think we can do better. You know, I noticed there's some mistakes in here. Let's see how we can fix them. Let's figure out why they happened. We can do better than this. Let's move forward. Versus, what are you, stupid? Look, there's these four things that are wrong. I don't know why you would hand me this garbage. I can't believe you showed me that. Go fix it. Okay, well, which is your normal style of speaking to people? If you normally call them stupid, if you normally are just dismissive to them when you're giving feedback, no one's going to tell you the truth ever because they're afraid of your reaction. That's your brand. Whereas if someone trusts that they can bring you something and that if they need to improve, you'll tell them, but you won't crush their soul, you won't crush their spirit in the process, then that changes who they know you to be. Not just that you can be nice when you're trying to show off in front of somebody else. That's different. So every conversation that you have is adds another layer to create your brand, your reputation for who people know you to be in your heart.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I meant.
So you earlier mentioned that you love geopolitics. So it is like you are creating your own soft power
Yeah,
through those branding.
sure. And
Yeah.
of course, what we have to be careful of it, on the national level is when you think about other countries, you're thinking about the government, right? Most people, if you ever have a chance to travel to another country, you realize people are lovely. People welcome you into their home. They want to help you try to find things on a map. They will help you in a marketplace
Yeah.
or, in the airport. Most people are truly inherently good, no
Yeah.
matter what country you're in. When you watch the nation's leaders talking to each other and talking about each other, well, we are less proud of it sometimes, depending on who's talking to whom, depending on the day, depending on the year. And I just know that no matter who is leading my country, I don't want to be judged by whatever that person said or did in a particular day.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure, most people will feel the same. And I want to be judged for who I am, not for the stereotype of my country based on the leadership at the top with the biggest microphone. So that's something we have to bear in mind in the empathy also, right? How we listen to each other. Oh, you're in India. So are you one of those people? Or your audience thinking, oh, she's American. Well, I don't know that I trust Americans today because of,
Yeah.
oh, okay, then
Yep. Yep. Yep.
can you judge me for who I am and not for others who have shared certain qualities as me?
We shouldn't judge North Korean people just because Kim Jong Un.
Right, right,
Yep. Yep.
exactly.
So, ma'am, how to become a better listener? I guess you answered this question, but if you have any practical step to how to become a better listener.
I think number one is to follow what we often refer to as the golden rule, which is the idea of doing unto others as you would have them do unto you, as you want them to, the way you want to be treated, that's the way you should treat others. So if
Yeah.
you are listening to someone, but really all you're trying to do is wait for your turn to jump in and to where, when do I get to talk? When do I get to talk? Are you done? Are you done? Can I talk now? I need you to listen to me. Well, that's not how, when it is your turn, you don't want that person to be thinking the same thing. You want to know that you've been heard. So start by being the listener that you wish you had. And I think when we approach other people with genuine curiosity, we become better listeners. Because even if we go, how can this person believe this? How can this person want that? Why don't they understand? Blah, blah, blah. All behavior and all choices and beliefs make sense with enough context. So if you are thinking, well, why would she think this? Why would she say that? Well, let's find out. I'm curious to know what gave you that. What experience did you have? Who told you this? What did you witness? What did you see, hear, feel, taste? What happened that created this belief in you, or this priority for you? Usually, if I listen more carefully and with curiosity, instead of looking for ways to say no, looking for ways to contradict, looking for possible mistakes where you can cut the other person off and say, aha. When you listen to say no, then you're just searching, you're hunting for something to argue. That's not looking to listen. And this is part of what Chris Voss talks about in his book in Never Split the Difference. When the more you can dig with genuine curiosity to understand what's really underneath someone else's perspective, their motivations, their drive or their priorities. Oh, okay. Now I understand better. Now I can work with you and we can figure this out better together, because it's not just two competing opinions. You need to understand what's beneath it. So curiosity is a much better teacher than
Yeah,
just
ma'am.
ego.
Yeah, ma'am. So, ma'am, why do leaders need storytelling skills?
Stories bring data to life. The way that we process stories in our brain is different from how we process data. If and I'm going to make a big generalization here, but if you think about this part of your brain up here is like your Excel spreadsheet or your Google sheet. It's where your data gets processed. But the part back here is the heart, the emotion of your brain. And so your fight or flight, your reaction, your reflex is so when if I'm just explaining facts to you, whether it's history and chronology, point A, point B, point C, or I am showing you a spreadsheet, or I'm just giving you facts, there's no emotion tied to most of those, unless it's emotion you already have connected to it. So you're less, it's harder to follow. It's a little drier. But when I tell a story that illustrates the point that I want you to make, then if you tell the story well, the listener doesn't just hear the story, they experience the story with you as you are telling it. And when you experience a story, so if you're telling me a time about when maybe you almost got in a car accident. Maybe the car lost control on ice or during rain or something. And you can imagine the feeling gripping the wheel and praying you don't crash. You've got kids in the back seat. As you're listening to the story, you're going, oh my gosh, oh my, I can't, you almost imagine yourself there. You can feel your heart starting to pound, even though this happened 6 months ago. You weren't in the car. I don't know why. And yet your body is still reacting chemically. And it's because what's triggering in your amygdala, your fight or flight is sinking. The story activates different parts of the brain and when a really good storyteller is going on the story, there are studies that show that when they've hooked up the storyteller's brain to a machine with all the little electrodes, and the listener's brain to a similar machine, that as the speaker is telling different parts of the story, that the brain waves of the listener will start to follow the brain waves of the speaker. They will synchronize. So when you can tell the story behind it, give a case study, give an example, help me imagine what the future of this situation might be if we follow this path or that path. It helps people have a physiological difference in their response that will help them feel the need to make a choice in one direction or another, to go with you or to go against you in that. So storytelling is a massively important persuasion and leadership skill.
Hmm. Very interesting, man. One question just popped to my mind is, since we are talking about storytelling, giving analogies is also is a form of storytelling, right? So can
Yes,
you,
it's
yeah. So can you overdo analogy?
Sure, sure. I mean, there are ways to do it right and there are ways to do it wrong. Number one, an analogy has to be a relevant
Yeah.
analogy to the listener. So if I am talking to a bunch of engineers, I might use an analogy of a computer or of
Yeah.
a car or a machine more than if I'm like one of my clients is a global they do baked goods, so breads and different ingredients that get mixed into cakes and to other baked treats along those lines. So I've done trainings for rooms full of people who are all bakers and chemists, PhDs in chemistry and what, but I can use food analogies for them that would be different from if I was using food analogies
Yep.
for
Yep.
you.
Yep.
Here we use the
Yep.
appetizer analogy. But if I'm talking to a room full of bakers and I use a
Yep.
food
Yep. Yep.
analogy, I'll talk about cakes. If I'm talking in India, I don't know what are common cakes there, but maybe I'll reference samosas or something else or kinds of rice that are more common experiences for that
Yep. Yep.
audience. If I'm talking in Japan, I won't say samosa. They won't know what I mean.
Yep. Yep.
So
Yep.
relevance to the audience matters a
Yep, ma'am.
lot.
Yep, ma'am. So, ma'am, what advice you have for someone who want to become a communication coach like you?
To become a communications coach. It's interesting because it's not something that it was not my intention to become a coach. My intention was to be a professor and to be a teacher and a trainer. And as a result of of my experience there, I started to have the opportunity to do more coaching one on one. So, I think you have to have some sort of expertise in the field. You can't just say, I think I'll become an executive coach tomorrow, or that's the career goal. What is your niche? Everyone needs their personal spot of expertise, and so find yours.
Yeah.
If you are communicating, what is your niche? Are you good at translating tech for non-tech people? That can be your niche as a communications coach, or a communications trainer, helping your technology developer people to translate the work for the sales team so that the sales team knows how to go and sell to clients, because the salespeople work for the tech company, but they may not really understand the technology all that well,
Yep.
just the
Yep.
sort of
Yep.
surface level. So maybe you can help translate and teach people to translate that way. Or there's so many different ways. What is the part of communication that you're good at? Are you good at translating, different languages? Are you good at Urdu? Are you good at Bengali? Are you good at Punjabi? Are you good at Tamil or Telugu? Okay, well, there's those communities and languages. Is it a literal translation, or is it just perhaps helping the two cultural groups interpret each other better, regardless of which language they're using? Or maybe together you're using English or you're using Hindi together, but there's still the cultural element. And so you
Yeah.
want to help make sure everybody's on the same page. They're together. Everyone has a niche. Find out what's yours.
Yep. So this is kind of a process. It is not like you that you wake up and decide that you want to be a communication coach.
Yes, and you're not going to go on LinkedIn or some other job posting site and say, okay, where's the job posting for a cognitive linguist or a job posting for a communications executive coach? Nobody posts those kinds of jobs. You're not going to go to university and major in communications coaching. It doesn't happen. I am very much, I refer to myself often as an accidental entrepreneur. It wasn't supposed to happen. I never imagined that it's what I would do. I was a teacher and then I was a professor. And then I had an opportunity to do some training for a company. So I thought, okay, I could do a little bit of that too. And then that started happening more and more and it started expanding. And then I opened a business because it seemed like that was the space that I was in. And that was 17 years ago. And now here I am. But, my older son just finished university. And I remember 4 years ago when he was applying to colleges, he said to me, he was thinking about what he might want to study and what kind of career he might want. And he said,
Yeah.
"Did you always know that this is what you wanted to do?" I said, "Sweetie, I didn't know that what I do now was even a thing until someone offered to pay me to do it." So,
Yep.
you'll find your own way too. But that's the beauty of how fast the world is changing. Just keep your eyes and your ears open and listen for opportunity and then make it happen.
Yeah, ma'am. That's a great answer. So, ma'am, this is the last round. I will say a word, and you have to say whatever the thing which comes to your mind, or a thought, or could be anything.
Okay.
Yeah. Nature,
Sunshine,
food,
lots of it.
trust,
Necessary.
AI, artificial intelligence,
Mm, just tip of the iceberg.
freedom,
We take it for granted.
music,
Food for the soul.
challenge,
Challenge yourself every day.
knowledge,
Something to perpetually seek.
audience,
The world.
success,
Defined by each person for themselves.
money,
Necessary, but should not be the ultimate goal.
TEDx,
A great opportunity.
travel,
I love it.
politics,
Unfortunate in how it divides people today.
efficient,
Efficiency is something we need more of.
credibility,
The cornerstone of leadership.
and final is pitch.
When used correctly, it conveys a lot of meaning.
So, ma'am, one last question. What is the best piece of advice that you ever received?
I'm trying to think of something that's not too cliche in that. Many people have different kinds of relationships with money. And I was a teacher because I wanted to help children. I wanted to help a lot of people. And I was a professor because I wanted to continue along those lines. Um, and when the opportunity came to do more consulting in business, I was conflicted because I thought, well, this is a much better business opportunity. And, at least here in the US, professors don't get paid very well for their amount of time and expertise and things. And so I was thinking about, well, if I go in this other direction, am I going to be selling out? It was a crisis of conscience that I'm trying to go and do a new career that will pay better and give up the teaching in the classroom part. And my father was a teacher for 40 years. And I asked him for his advice on which direction to go. And he said, Laura, you've paid your dues. Now it's time to get paid what you're due. So he's like, you've done lots of service. You've done lots of work. You've put in the time. You've earned the credentials. You've done what you can, but you have to do what you need to do to build your life, family, all those kinds of things. So don't feel guilty about it. There's nothing wrong. It's not selfish to go in that direction. So it set me free to start this new second half of my career.
Yeah.
That's a long story for a short question, but that was the question. That was the best piece of advice.
Yeah, ma'am. Thanks for sharing. I mean, you are speaking from your heart.
Yes.
Yeah. Usually, these questions, some people just say in 2-3 lines, but I really appreciate that you took time and really answered a very personal answer. Yeah.
That was what came to mind.
Yeah, ma'am. So, ma'am, that's the end of the podcast. Any final thought?
Oh, this was such a lovely experience. Thank you for the conversation. And I really hope that your listeners got great value from this. And, if I don't know if this is of interest to them, but I'd be very happy to share perhaps in the show notes, a link where they can download 2 free chapters of my book and for speaking to influence. And then they can get more information for free from there.
Yeah, ma'am. I will make sure to attach those.
Wonderful. Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Laura Sicola, and you've been tuning in to Shree's podcast, The Billion Insights. If you enjoyed our conversation, don't forget to subscribe and like the podcast. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, leaving a 5-star rating would mean a lot. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for sharing your years of expertise and for helping us understand that our voice is one of the greatest leadership tools in a world where so much is said and so little is heard. Your message is both challenge and guide for anyone who wants to lead with greater impact. We deeply appreciate your time, your mission, and the legacy you are building.
Thank you.
And to our listener, if you want to learn more about Dr. Laura Sicola and her work, be sure to check out her book and the podcast. And a sample copy, which she just mentioned, I will attach all the link in the description. And thank you for joining us today. We hope to see you next time on the Billion Insight podcast. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and stay curious. This is Shree, your host, signing out. Peace. So, ma'am, that's the end.